بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد brothers and sisters, there is no doubt that that which is currently afflicting various cities throughout the states in its current time is well known to the Muslims. The civil unrest that has its basis on uh, racial unrest or racial division, then that which is occurring in the society today is well known to all of us. It's well known to all of us. And we as Muslims, then it is imperative and incumbent upon us that we don't be insensitive to the plight of the weak and or oppressed within the society. And I'm going to say that again, one more time, that us as Muslims, regardless of what your background may be, what your financial status may be, and thus forth and so on, which country you come from, how many generations of Islam is within your family, it is not befitting for the Muslim to be insensitive to the plight of the weak and or oppressed. And I want to illustrate this very simple point, and I hope I don't take too long. Sometimes I plan on going 15 minutes and it turns into 45 minutes. But I want to deal with this point for a second when looking at an incident that took place during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And it is when a group of the Quraysh took a trip to Sham, and they were summoned by the ruler and or leader of the Byzantine Empire at that time, Heraclius, if I'm pronouncing that name right. In the Arabic, Herakl. He was the leader again of the Byzantine Empire, the Byzantine being the Eastern Roman Empire. And when he was summoned, when these mushrikeen from amongst the Quraysh were mushrikeen at that time, Abu Sufyan ibn Harb at that time, he was not a Muslim. When he was summoned, the leader, Heraclius, asked him some questions. Why? Because the da'wah of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala's messenger had reached him. And so he asked him some questions in order to ascertain the truthfulness and the prophethood, the truthfulness as it relates to the messengership and or prophethood of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. From those questions that were asked, and I'm going to read directly from Imam al-Bukhari, directly from the hadith that's found in Imam al-Bukhari's Sahih, and it is the 8th hadith in Kitab Bad' al-Wahi. And from the questions, Heraclius, he states, كيف نسبه فيكم? This is the first question he asks. How is his lineage amongst you all? قلت هو فينا ذو نسب. With us, he is of noble lineage or descent. He continued, فهل قال هذا القول منكم أحد قط قبله? Heraclius, he then asked, has anyone before him made the same claim? Yani made the claim of prophethood and or messengership. And of course he responded, La, no one has made this claim. He states, فَهَلْ كَانَ مِنْ آبَائِهِ مِنْ مَلِكٍ? And was there anyone from amongst his fathers, yani his forefathers, that was a king? Abu Sufyan responded, La. And then he stated, فَأَشْرَافُ النَّاسِ يَتَّبِعُونَهُ أَمْ ضُعَفَاء? Am du'afa'uhum, are the nobles from amongst the people, those that are following him, or the weak? And so, of course, he responded, Bel du'afa'uhum. On the contrary, the weak ones follow him. قال أيزيدون أم ينقصون? He stated, or he asked, are they increasing in number or are they decreasing? Bel yazidun. The response from Abu Sufyan, on the contrary, they're increasing. فهل يرتد أحد منهم سخطة لدينه بعد أن يدخل فيه? Has anyone from amongst them turned away or committed apostasy from that religion after having entered it, having some type of discomfort, and so they turn away after having entered it? He responded, La, no. فهل كنتم تتهمونه بالكذب قبل أن يقول ما قال? Did you all accuse him of lying before he has said what he said of being a prophet and or a messenger of Allah? And then of course the response was no. فهل يغدر? Has he been treacherous? And the answer was no. And then Abu Sufyan, he made the statement, but right now we are at a time of peace. We have a peace treaty taking place right now, and we don't know how he's going to act during this peace treaty, if he'll act treacherous or not. And this was the only thing that Abu Sufyan was able to say about the Prophet ﷺ that was negative. Although he wanted to say other things that were negative, and he even wanted to lie. But he feared because Hirakl placed those that traveled with him behind him and told them that if he lies, then, make mention of it. And so he feared lying, and he feared lying because he didn't want to be declared or attributed. He didn't want that stigma or that characteristic attributed to him. So there were more questions that were asked by Hirakl as it relates to the Prophet ﷺ. But there is something that's very important. One of the questions that's very important that was asked. And Hirakl, after he concluded his line of questioning, he started to reveal to them why he asked the questions that he asked and that type of answers that he was looking for. And so he states, سألتك عن نسبه فذكرت أنه فيكم ذو نسب. I asked you all about his lineage, and you said to me that he was from an honorable lineage. فكذلك الرسل تبعثوا في نسب قومها. And like that, that is exactly how the messengers are, that they are sent within the nasab of their qawm, within the noble lineage from amongst their people. وسألتك هل قال أحد منكم هذا القول? And I asked you, did anyone from amongst you all make that particular statement? فذكرت أن لا. فقلت لو كان أحد قال هذا القول قبله لقلت رجل يأتسي بقول قيل قبله. He stated that you responded. When I asked you this question, you responded by saying no. And it's as if he's saying that had you said yes, then I would have said, if anyone prior to him had made that statement, then I would have said that he is a man that is just emulating, the statement of the statement that was said prior to him. وَسَأَلْتُكَ هَلْ كَانَ مِنْ آبَائِهِ مِنْ مَلَكٍ. And I asked you if he had from amongst his forefathers a king, if there was a king that was from amongst his forefathers. فذكرت أن لا. And you responded with no. قلت فلو كان من أبائه من ملك قلت رجل يطلب ملك أبيه. And then he stated, after I asked you this, you said no. And if there had been from amongst his forefathers a king, then I would have said he is a man that is attempting or demanding the sovereignty of his forefathers. وسألتك هل كنتم تتهمونه بالكذب قبل أن يقول ما قال. And I asked you, did you all accuse him of lying prior to him saying what he's saying about him being a messenger of Allah? فذكرت أن لا. You responded with no. فقد أعرف أنه لم يكن ليظهر الكذب على الناس ويكذب على الله. So he stated, so indeed, I know that this individual abandons lying upon people, telling a lie against a person, yet you would expect him to lie against Allah. He doesn't even lie. He doesn't even lie on other people. So why would he lie on Allah by claiming that he is what he is now, Allah's messenger, Allah's prophet sent to all of mankind, and thus forth and so on. وسألتك أشراف الناس اتبعوه أم ضعفاؤهم فذكرت أن ضعفاءهم اتبعوه وهم أتباع الرسل. And then he stated, and I ask you, do the noble ones, do the elite from amongst the people follow him, or is it the weak from amongst them? The weak, the low, the oppressed from amongst them, the low class, for lack of better expressions, and thus forth and so on. And you mentioned that the weak from amongst them follow him. Then Hirakl made a very important statement. He made a very important statement. The weak, the lowly people, people that are considered low within the society, those that are considered oppressed, they are the followers of the messengers. They are the followers of the messengers. So when looking at that, then the Muslim should understand that there should be some concern for the weak and lowly in a society and the oppressed within a society. And there shouldn't be, this type of insensitivity to their plight and or disregard for what they're going through as a direct result of the oppression that's being inflicted upon them. Now, I want to read the statement of Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar Al-Asqalani, which states, وَقَوْلِ هِرَاقِلْ وَهُمْ أَتْبَاعُ الرُّسُلِ معناه أن أتباع الرسل في الغالب أهل الاستكانة لا أهل الاستكبار الذين أصروا على الشقاق بغيا وحسدا كأبي جهل وأشياعه. He states that the statement of Hirakl, that they are the followers of the messengers. What is intended by it is that the followers of the messengers, the majority of them, are the people who are considered lowly and abased. The people who are considered lowly and abased within the society. Those that are considered the oppressed within the society. Those that are considered the downtrodden in the society. Those that are looked at in a negative manner in a society. And then it continues, and they are not from amongst the people that are haughty or arrogant. Those that persevere upon shiqaq, defiance or opposition, out of what? Out of envy and or jealousy, like Abu Jahl and those that are similar to him. those that are similar to him. Listen to and comprehend what this Imam is saying about the followers of the messengers. Listen to and understand what he's saying. Al-Imam al-Nawawi, wa rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh, he comments, because this hadith is found not only in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari, but likewise in the Sahih of Imam Muslim. So he comments on the statement, or the question of Hirakl or Heraclius, do the noble or elite from amongst the people follow him, or the weak ones or oppressed? يعني بأشرافهم كبارهم وأهل الأحساب فيهم. He states what is intended by the honored ones of them, or the nobles of them, yani those that are considered the seniors amongst them in status. وأهل الأحساب فيهم, and the people of yani a noble or yani high, yani this high, the lineage that's considered in high regard. Yani his lineage is considered to have nobility therein. This is what is meant by ashrafihim, yani the elite from amongst the society. Those that are considered from amongst the upper class, those that are considered from amongst the affluent and influential people of a society. That's what's intended by this. But then Imam Nawawi, when explaining the weak from amongst them, that the weak are the followers of the yani messengers, he states that yani the noble ones, the elite, they have disdain for whoever comes to them whoever comes to them that is similar to them, whoever comes to them informing them about yani them abandoning whatever foolishness they're upon in order to follow truth. They have disdain for this. Whereas the weak and the oppressed, they don't have disdain for this. فَيَسْرَعُونَ إِلَى الْإِنْقِيَادِ وَاتِّبَاعِ الْحَقِّ. So they are swift in complying yani with guidance and following the truth. They are swift with compliance towards the guidance and following the truth. Now, why am I making this statement? One, if we understand what's being stated here, then the Muslim who's been commissioned to call the people to al-Islam, call the people to the Tawheed of Allah, call the people to willful compliance, surrenderance, and or submission to Allah, then we should have in our minds that first the call is to everybody without a doubt. But we should have some concern for those who are more likely to embrace al-Islam, for those who have more of a leaning towards the truth, for those that are more inclined to submit to this truth, And in this particular narration, what is being made clear is that the weak, lowly, and or oppressed have been consistently mentioned as followers of the messengers, those that submitted to their call, those that answered the response of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And there is no doubt that here in America, in this particular society, that those that are considered to be Black Americans are from the weak, lowly, and or oppressed. The Black Americans within the society are a disenfranchised people and a people that have been systematically held back economically and otherwise. And this is just fact. This isn't a statement that is left for room for dispute. To argue this, for someone to come and attempt to argue this, you're better off telling him, look, man, just go bounce your head on the side of a mountain. I don't have time to argue with you. You might as well just go bounce your head on the side of a mountain. Because if you have this understanding with all this clear and evident things taking place within the society, I don't have time to talk to you, to be quite honest. I don't have time to talk to you. You'll just be wasting my time. And so when looking at this condition and or situation of Black Americans within the society, and excuse me for 1 second. When looking at the plight of Black Americans within the society, then we have to take a look at history to really get a good look at why the statement is made that Black Americans are without a doubt from amongst the low, debased, and oppressed within the society. And I don't want to take a whole lot of time on this, but I don't want to rush through it neither. And I think this is very important for people to understand in order for us to change the attitude of some of the Muslims amongst us that act insensitive towards the plight of Black Americans within the society. And so one of the things that we have to take a look at is American history. And so we know that Black Americans, or the slave trade, was big business here in America. Now, when you go to the history books, they say the slave trade started in 1619 when 20 slaves were brought to Jamestown, a colony in Virginia. But in reality, there were Black or of African descent slaves that were in America prior to that. And slavery wasn't officially abolished until the 1800s, into the 1800s. So you had around 245 years of slavery that took place, chattel slavery that took place here within the United States. And within this 245 years or 46 years of slavery, literally, slaves worked for no wages and built the wealth of their owners, which would without a doubt be people of European descent. For 245 years, this is generation after generation after generation, they built the wealth of this country up and received no compensation whatsoever. Within that time of slavery here in the U.S., there were atrocities committed against Black Americans. And I want to mention a few in order for people to get a clear understanding of the type of things that took place. So we have the term gator babies, for instance. Gator babies, this term came about due to white slave owners taking babies in the South, taking slave babies and using them as bait for alligators. Not taking a chicken or something to this effect, but using the toddlers or the babies, the infants of slaves, and using them as gator bait. What that means is that when you tie a string or something up to this child and throw them in the river, now the gator goes after that baby. The gator goes after that baby, and then they basically reel the gator in and club it until it's killed. All right? This is from the horrors that Black Americans faced at that time. We have the man James Marion Sims. Yani, he was also known as the father of gynecology. The father of gynecology. So all you women, Muslim or non-Muslim, that goes to the gynecologist's office for whatever treatment that's needed, the origin of this medicine, or this field of medicine, is credited to this man. But this was a man that experimented on slave women. On slave women. And the experiments that he did or performed on slave women, he refused to use any anesthesia because he claimed that blacks didn't feel pain. So the type of things that he did to these women in the name of gynecology, remind a person of a script from a horror movie. He literally tortured women, but yet he has monuments and he's praised for his achievements and thus forth and so on. And the horrors that he did are never spoken about. During slavery, slaves, this 245-year period, slaves were punished with, but not limited to, being whipped, hung, being branded, women raped, mutilation, and imprisonment. And this is as it relates to punishment for not fulfilling a duty to the liking of their owner. But then these same things would be done to slaves if the owners wanted to show some type of display of dominance over the slaves. You know what? I haven't done something in a while to show them I'm the boss, that they belong to me. So let me take this slave over here and making them examples so they can understand that I'm the boss, I'm master, and thus forth and so on. Then you have the things that took place through the Reconstruction period. And then you have things that took place after Reconstruction, which was what they called the Jim Crow era. And the Jim Crow era lasted from around 1877 to the 1950s. And the Jim Crow era was basically, its purpose was to disenfranchise and remove from blacks the political and economic gains that were attained during Reconstruction after slavery was abolished. And during this period of time, now I want to just, before I continue, keep in mind, the Jim Crow era was for the specific purpose of disenfranchisement and removal of political and economic gains. Because blacks were trying to be industrialists and trying to better their situation by their own hands, their economic and political situation. If people open up a history book, you will see that they were trying to an attempt to make gains. But then laws were brought in to stifle that. This is what you call institutionalized racism, that the government as an institution stepped in and prevented the progress of black people in America. It wasn't because we're lazy, we're stupid, we can't figure it out, and all these foolish things that stereotypes that are attached to blacks in America. Now, when looking at the Jim Crow period, blacks suffered from mob violence and lynchings. Lynchings were like a pastime, a sports event to white people during that time. If you read the book 100 Years of Lynching and you see the newspaper clippings, man, some of these lynchings, they will be outside cooking hot dogs as a black man's body was burning. They will come in and start to cut off parts of the black person's anatomy, yani limbs and ears and lips and nose and even penis and testicles. These are within the newspaper clippings describing the horrors of those lynchings. Successful black towns were physically attacked and destroyed. When I say successful black towns, because there was segregation during the Jim Crow era. Blacks couldn't live next to whites. So blacks established their own communities, and in some cases were very successful economically within their communities. The most well-known to the people is Tulsa, Oklahoma, aka Black Wall Street. If anybody who may be viewing this is unfamiliar with Black Wall Street or what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I advise you to Google it. In the 1919, and because before I continue, I want to mention that Tulsa, Oklahoma, because when most people talk about Tulsa, Oklahoma, they talk about it as if it was an isolated event. It was not an isolated event. In the year 1919, there was something called the Red Summer. The Red Summer is when black towns that were successful economically and otherwise were attacked by white mobs. And this was in the summer of 1919 again. How many cities and rural areas were attacked throughout the United States? Over 3 dozen. And a lot of these mobs were people that had official positions within the government. Some being officials from amongst the U.S. Army, the Marines, the Navy, people who were sailors, and other types of soldiers, and thus forth and so on. These are some of the things that took place within U.S. history, the atrocities that were inflicted upon Black Americans. And then you have the civil rights era that was more recent from the 1950s onward. And we've seen what Black Americans had to endure during that time as well. With all of that said and done, then there is no doubt that when you look at the lowly and or oppressed people within this particular society, then Black Americans are without a doubt from that people. But I want to mention a study from the Pew Research Center, a study that was done in January of 2017. And I want to connect it back to what Herakl stated, that the followers of the prophets and messengers, the majority of their followers were the weak and oppressed. So keep this in mind as I mention what was found in this research. In this Pew Research study, they found that converts to Al-Islam here in America, non-black converts, so obviously they mean white and Latino, Hispanic, and thus forth and so on. Non-black converts made up 15% of the converts that were entering into Al-Islam. Black converts made up 49%. 49%. That's half the number of people converting to Al-Islam here in America. Half of them were Black Americans. One of the things that they found from this study as well is that they stated that Black American Muslims that are considered African American or Black American or whatever label that you identify yourself with are more likely than others in the U.S. to pray all 5 prayers, all 5 daily prayers. Black Americans are more likely to pray than others. And then it gave a statistic, 55% as opposed to 39% that affirm for themselves Al-Islam. That affirm for themselves Al-Islam. Now, we know the statement of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala when he says, وَكَذَلِكَ يُضِلُّ اللَّهُ مَن يَشَاءُ وَيَهْدِي مَن يَشَاءُ. And like that, we are caused to go astray whomever we will, and we guide whomever we will. But what we see from these statistics and the reality that's happening here in America is that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is choosing to guide in large numbers, more so than anyone else here in America, these lowly and or oppressed people. These lowly and or oppressed people, Black Americans, are responding to Islam more so than others. More so than others. And so it is from stupidity and ignorance that anyone of another ethnicity that claims to be upon the Sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and claims to be trying to get close to Allah, to be insensitive to the plight of the lowly and oppressed within society, after understanding and comprehending that which was just previously presented. To the point where a person will come and say, the amount of dates that I eat in the morning is more important to me than the killing of George Floyd. Or however the person that made this statement worded it, regardless of how he worded it, what type of flowery speech that he combined to make that statement, it is from stupidity and ignorance to make a statement like that in light of what was just presented. In light of what was just presented. It is from stupidity and ignorance to have an insensitivity, to be insensitive towards the plight of those that are oppressed. Here it is, Herakl, the Kafir leader of the Roman Empire, had a better understanding than a Muslim who would make a statement like that. So if the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the best example for us to follow, then without a doubt, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was from the most merciful of the people. And without a doubt, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the best of examples. قال الله تبارك وتعالى لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة لمن كان يرجو الله وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرَ وَذَكَرَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. Indeed, in the Messenger of Allah, you have the best of example for those that hope in Allah and the last day and remember Allah abundantly. And remember Allah abundantly. And Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, He states, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. And we have not sent you, Yani Muhammad, except as a mercy to mankind. So is it possible for the Prophet ﷺ to be described as a mercy for mankind, yet he wasn't merciful to the people? Regardless if they were Muslim or non-Muslim? Is that possible? Is it possible for a person who is being described like this to hear about his neighbor's death that may be a kafir and then to say, look, the washing of my feet for wudu is more important to me than the grieving of that family over there? Is that from mercy? Is being insensitive to the grief of people considered to be from the example of our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Can a person that adopts a trait like this, in that regard, be considered someone that's truly following the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam? I think the answers to these questions are very easy as it relates to the intelligent. The intelligent are able to answer these questions with no problem. So the point that I'm making is that, again, and I'm going to keep emphasizing this, it's not from guidance to be insensitive towards the plight of those that are oppressed. It's not from guidance to be insensitive towards their plight. The Prophet ﷺ, he stated in hadith of Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, and this hadith is collected by Abu Dawood in his Sunnah, likewise by Imam at-Tirmidhi fi Jami'ihi. But the Prophet ﷺ, he stated, Ar-Rahimun, Yarhamuhum ar-Rahman. Those that are merciful, the merciful people, the most merciful will bestow mercy upon them. Irhamu man fil ard, yarhamkum man fis sama. So be merciful to whomever is in the earth, and the one who is above the heavens will be merciful to you. Be merciful to the people that are in the earth, and the one who is above the heavens will be merciful to you. This is what our Prophet ﷺ instructs us with. Now, there are two benefits from this particular statement of the Prophet ﷺ that I want to emphasize for 1 second. One, within this statement of the Prophet ﷺ, you have what you call jumlatun shartiyatun, which we would describe in the English language as a sentence that has therein a conditional clause. A sentence that has therein a conditional clause. What is intended by that is that if an individual is trying to achieve this thing, then it cannot be achieved except by something else being made conditional in order for that thing to be achieved. In other words, it is impossible for you to achieve mercy from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, because in order for you to achieve mercy, it's been made conditional upon you to be merciful to others. To others. That's the first thing I want to mention as it relates to this particular statement of the Prophet ﷺ. The second thing, the Prophet ﷺ stated, Irhamu men fil ard. Men, well, I'm translating as whosoever. Be merciful to whomsoever is in the earth. Why am I translating it like that? Because man is what you call ismul mawsul yufidul umum. It's what you call in the Arabic language ismul mawsul. So it denotes generality. Not one type of person from the people you should be merciful to, but what is understood is everyone from amongst the people you should be merciful to. You should be merciful to. Now, this understanding, we find the ulama, past and present, when explaining this hadith, emphasizing that. Emphasizing that. I want to read the statement of he who explained the Jami' of Imam al-Tirmidhi, yani the author to Tuhfatul Ahwadi, and that being Abul Ali Muhammad al-Mubarak Furi, Abul Ali Muhammad Abdul Rahman ibn Abdul Rahim al-Mubarak Furi. He quotes the statement of Ibn Battal, where he says, فيه الحظ على استعمال الرحمة لجميع الخلق. He states that Ibn al-Battal stated within it, yani this hadith, there is an encouragement to utilize mercy for all of the creation. Not some from amongst the creation, not only the Muslims from amongst the creation, or not only your particular ethnicity from amongst the creation, or your gender from amongst the creation, but all of creation. And then he continues, فَيَدْخُلُ الْمُؤْمِنُ وَالْكَافِرُ. So who enters into this is the believer and the disbeliever. Unduru ya ibadallah. Take heed to what's being stated from the statements of the ulama. What enters into this is the believer and the non-believer. Wal baha'im, and the animals. Wal mamluk, and those that are owned. Wa ghayrul mamluk, and those that are considered to be free. Be merciful to everyone from amongst the creation. So the case would be, the question would be asked, is making statements that are clearly display insensitivity towards the plight of the oppressed. Yani being insensitive and condescending to people that are grief-stricken due to oppression that has been inflicted upon them. Is that from mercy? Is that from wisdom? These are a group of people that you hope and want to guide to Islam. Is acting in that manner with them, do you expect by that to bring them closer to Islam? A people whom Hirakil understood were the followers of the prophets and messengers? Du'afa un-nas? Is that how we deal with them? Is that how we as Muslims conduct ourselves? And then say we're following the footsteps of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? There are many examples from the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that shows that this type of characteristic that was described with, this type of insensitivity and condescending type attitude towards the oppressed, there's many examples from the lifetime of the Prophet that show that he was not upon that way. He was not upon that way. So if we want to be of benefit to the people in this society, with the goal, the primary goal of calling them to al-Islam, and there is no way that we can act in a disrespectful manner, in a condescending manner, in an insensitive manner to their plight, especially if there are people that are clearly within the society from amongst those that are being oppressed and have been oppressed for 400 years within the society. The ulama don't speak like this. I remember when I was in Saudi, one of the brothers had one of the brothers informed me of a meeting, or not even a meeting, but he had the opportunity to sit with Sheikh Salih Al Luhaydan. He caught him at the masjid. The Sheikh was praying, and they had a small discussion. And the Sheikh asked him, "Where are you from?" And the brother said, "I'm from America." And literally, he said, him and the Sheikh started having a conversation about the plight of Black Americans in America from an American history perspective up until present day at that time. And the brother stated that the Sheikh showed the utmost of concern for Black Americans. And in the midst of the conversation, he said, the Sheikh said to him, "You know, many of you all were Muslim before you landed on the shores of America. And Allah is honoring you all again by calling you all back to Islam." By calling you all back to Islam. So we need to keep these things in mind when we open our mouths on public forums like Instagram or other than that and speak about issues and are not really giving consideration to what we're saying and who we're offending when we make these statements. When we make statements. Because these are the very same people that we're trying to guide to Al-Islam. And we're not going to guide people to Al-Islam, with an attitude like, the oppression that you're facing means nothing to me. Means nothing to me. In reality, I care more about washing my feet for wudu than what you're going through as a human being, and the oppression that you're faced with, and the oppression that you've been systematically faced with from you as a person living in the society today, and your father, and your grandfather, and your great-grandfather, and thus for so on. To speak like this is from sheer stupidity. And I ask the brothers and sisters who are viewing to excuse me if hopefully I don't seem like I'm being emotional as I speak about this, because I'm trying to maintain some decorum and like this. But when this particular clip was brought to me, I just it was unbelievable that a Muslim would be talking like that, especially in the climate that we're faced with today. So my advice is, let's do better. Let's do better. 49% of converts from amongst Americans are Black Americans. So we definitely shouldn't act insensitive to the plight that they're going through, when it clearly, from the statistics, show that Black Americans seem to have an inclination and a leaning towards the truth when they hear it. So let's be from amongst those that aid them in being brought into the truth by Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala's permission. And with that, subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.